Hello and welcome to the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. It's Monday morning. The Bears got a win yesterday. We're here to recap everything that happened in the Bears-Rams Bears victory at Soldier Field, 24-18. I am Shaw Local Bears beat reporter Sean Hammond. Joining me as he does every Monday and Friday is Shaw Local's very own Michael Dwojak. Michael, a Bears win. They're 2-2. What are you feeling after witnessing that one yesterday at Soldier Field?
I feel like you've kind of felt like a lot of relief, right? Like if it was for how much of I don't know how much of a week 4 matchup can be a must-win game, but it felt like that, right? Like it felt like if you go to 1-3, it's pretty much like doomsday. Like you start talking about coaches, you start talking about the future and what it all means. And it was nice to see this team put together a complimentary win, right? Like you saw the defense create turnovers and the Bears offense score. You saw, you saw, I know that Caleb Williams maybe didn't throw for 363 passes, but you saw him make plays when they mattered the most. And you saw him lead two really productive drives in the second half. So, and then you saw your punter, basically, help your defense win the game at the end of the game twice with two big punts. So, um, I think it was 24-18. I don't know if that's a scoregami or anything like that, but that's not a score I think you see too often. But it was a good win, and I feel like a win that you really build off as you move forward.
Yeah, 2-2 feels a heck of a lot different than 1-3. And one of those teams, the Bears or the Rams, was going to be in that situation at 1-3. And yeah, the Bears did enough to win the game. You saw that they were a little bit more balanced. They finally got the run game going. DeAndre Swift finally had a good day. Looking a little bit deeper at some of the advanced metrics, he was quite a bit more efficient than he had been the first 3 games. Is he the most efficient running back in the league? Probably not, but he's, there were holes there and he hit them. And so you will take that, especially compared to what this run game looked like the first 3 weeks of the season. Yeah, if you're joining us live on YouTube, thanks for coming along. Rick says good morning. Sports Chicago Style is here. Robert Phillips is in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us. We do appreciate you. If you're listening after the fact on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, keep an eye out on our Twitter pages. We'll let you know when we're going to go live. We are recording every Monday and Friday over here on YouTube. You can join the conversation, join the chat. We will get to some of your Bears comments and questions shortly. But let's dive right into our winners and losers. Michael, it's a win, so we're starting on the positive side. Who's your first winner? What you got?
I feel like my first winner has to be. I'll go with. I'll start off with a little fun side. I'll go with Tory Taylor. I think Tory Taylor is your winner. I always love to start a victory podcast with punter talk, but I feel like you kind of saw in the first few weeks of the season, a lot of Bears fans being like, "Why? See, this is why you don't draft a punter that high in the draft. This is why you don't even waste a draft pick on a punter." And even like Tory after yesterday's win was like, "Yeah, like I felt like I had something to prove. Like I know you had a chance to talk to him, Sean, and he really felt like he really needed to prove something." And those 2 punts that he had at the end of the game to pin the Rams on the 8-yard line both times. Obviously, the defense, the defense made the stops and got the interception there with Jaquan Brisker at the end of the game. But starting at your own 8-yard line has a very different game plan than like starting at your 20 or even like your 30 and that sort of stuff. And talking with a couple players after the game, Jalen Johnson was like, "I've never been more excited for a punt in my life," but like he really puts on a show out there, and Tory Taylor really does a great job. So Tory Taylor's one of my he had a great game, really turned things around and really put the Bears defense in position to make a stop at the end of the game.
Yeah, you and I were sitting in Indianapolis last weekend, and that was a conversation that came up. I mean, I think you asked me, what have you thought of Tory Taylor so far? And yeah, like the first 3 games were relatively like quiet, relatively tame for I guess what you're expecting when you draft a punter in the 4th round. He did have a handful of pins inside the 20, which was a lot better than what the Bears were working with previously.
Right.
They were one of the worst in the league in that metric. And that was there, but there wasn't like a big booming punt. There wasn't like a game altering pin inside the 10. And then yesterday we saw that 3 times. I mean, the 66-yard punt, or the second of his 3 pins was arguably the play of the game. I mean, that set the Rams in such a tough position, trying to go down. They needed 6 points with about 6 minutes and change left. You boot that thing 66 yards, pin them inside the 10, like you said, at the 8-yard line. And that makes it so much tougher for that Rams offense to move the chains. I mean, there's any time that you're back there, especially when you're at, playing on the road at Soldier Field against a really loud and excited crowd at Soldier Field. That's such a tough situation to be in. And yeah, Torrey, I did get to talk to him a little bit after the game, and he was really hard on himself for that Colts game. He felt like he had some major missed opportunities, and he wanted to put that in a pass and make up for it. And he did that in a big way. I mean, to come out and do what he did, he was a big reason why they won that football game yesterday.
Yeah, and I think that is the reason why Ryan Poles decided to draft him, right? Like, you were kind of like, how effective can a punter really be? Well, those are the kind of moments that, he can really be a difference there and really put the defense in a really strong position to make plays. So, it's just one game. Obviously, we're not going to go crazy and, obviously say it was a fantastic draft pick. There's nothing to critique or anything like that. But in this game, it really made a big difference and kind of showed the reasoning why, Ryan Poles decided to do what he did.
I'm going to go with a winner here. I'm going to go with Marcedes Lewis, and 2 parts. Of course, number one, he set the record for most appearances in the NFL for a tight end, 272 games for Marcedes Lewis. But also because he was the guy who kind of spoke up in front of us last week in the media and said, like, yeah, we basically told Shane Waldron and the offensive staff to call us out. And just talking to some of the players, DJ mentioned this after the game, like, guys were getting called out in film sessions, and they loved that. Like, the players responded to that. They liked that. You need to be held accountable if you're going to fix things. And I'm sure that DeAndre Swift was one of those guys who, it didn't look good the first 3 weeks. And, he said too, like, you asked specifically about guys getting called out, he said that's what winning businesses do. And so he was absolutely okay with that. And I'm sure the spotlight was on him a little bit there too. And of course on the offensive line, but those conversations needed to be had. And look, I know that this was a really bad Rams defense. Like, that's the thing that the excited Bears fans can kind of forget about that for a day and enjoy the win. But yeah, it was a bad Bears defense, but bad Rams defense, but you got to take advantage when you have those opportunities. And so to see them come out and play a complete game, even against a bad defense, that's exactly what they needed at this point in time.
Yeah, they responded the way they needed to, right? Like, obviously, there was a lot of talk, there were the headlines of, why isn't Waldron doing this? Like, why does the, leadership council even need to say anything or anything like that? So, it was really impressive just to see the leadership and the response from the team, where you could have a locker room where, guys would just be like, well, I'm just going to focus on myself. I don't care about what anyone else is doing. Like, if we lose, whatever, I'm just going to get mine. And you saw a lot of players step up to, like, obviously will hit on the couple big players, but like you mentioned, Swift, you obviously had big, rebound performance from Jaquan Brisker, obviously, after earlier a couple mistakes or, some plays that he wanted to make early in the game. So a lot of guys took that to heart, and obviously that plays a big role into, Lewis's leadership and it's kind of the reason why, you're kind of like, well, why do you bring him back? Why is he not practicing? What is he really adding to the team? That feels like a really big moment and a big reason why, this Bears team loves Marcedes Lewis.
Yeah, he's a leader. He's almost like an extra coach out there. He's a guy who's seen a million different things in his 19, 20, whatever, how many years it is in the league. Who else you got for a winner? What's next?
I'll go with, because I'm going to assume that you're going to go with one of the other guys. I'm going to go with Gervon Dexter. I think not only, for his week 4 performance, but I think through 4 weeks, we've seen him kind of take that step that we wanted to see him take, right? Like, I think we had questions, there was the whole, him changing his diet, him, working out and all that sort of stuff and changing things up. And I think that, through 4 weeks, you've seen him dominate. I think he has 3 sacks right now. I think that leads the defensive tackles. I think I saw that right. And he's just a major presence at this point. He's forcing, along with Billings up the middle, a lot of disruption up the middle, which is helping, Montez Sweat, which is helping Terrell Taylor, Demarcus Walker, those guys, right? So you're really seeing Montez Sweat is obviously having a great game too, obviously with the second sack. But you're really seeing Javon Dexter Sr. really, proving that he can, take that next step and really be a cornerstone of this defense. So that has to be really impressive to see. He had another strong performance today, had a nice sack, had really good rushes up the middle. But through 4 weeks, I think if you're the Bears, you have to be really excited about what Javon Dexter is showing.
Yeah, I think you absolutely are. And this is exactly the scenario that you were hoping would play out when you spent the offseason expecting him to step up and be a starter, be a big time contributor for your defense. Because, yeah, you can draft a guy in the second round and you can hope that he takes that next step in his game, but you don't really know until you get to September and you step out there on the field. And so far, the returns on Javon Dexter have been really, really good. I think Bears fans should be really excited about what he brings to the defense. I know we're only supposed to pick two winners, but I'll lump 2 more guys in there. We've kind of touched on DeAndre Swift already. Obviously, he's a winner. That was a big bounce back game for him. He looked a lot better than he has the first couple of weeks. I do think Roschon Johnson was still pretty efficient when he got his touches as well.
Yeah.
Obviously I don't know what the plan is with Khalil Herbert, but clearly those 2 guys are the top guys in that running back spot. But yeah, Swift is absolutely a winner. We don't have to touch on that. We've already kind of mentioned that, but I'll throw out Jaquan Brisker as well. I mean, he was a foot away from a literal foot away from having 2 interceptions in that game,
right?
With the one being called out of bounds there, unfortunately. But he had a really, really good game for this defense. And he's such a physical dude. He's such a ball of energy. If he's playing well, that usually means your whole defense is playing well. I know that they didn't get the 3 interceptions like you predicted, Michael, but a couple of turnovers against Matthew Stafford, that's a win.
Yeah, and that pretty much, it you saw Matthew Stafford it was kind of a weird thing where like he would find plays, he would make a play out of nothing sometimes, but then there are also times where you can see that Bears defense create pressure and, make them uncomfortable and, miss a throw here or there or something like that. So, that was such a huge play. That sack that he had in the fourth quarter pushed the Rams back to, I think it was a field goal as opposed to him. I think they would have been closer to maybe try to get a first down and maybe go for a touchdown as opposed to settling for a field goal. But that was a huge sack as well. Just a big performance for him. He talked after the game about how he, wanted to show out for his team. He felt like he made a couple plays. He had a personal foul where he hit a Rams player out of bounds. He said that he didn't, but I think if you look at the tape, it kind of does show that he did. But that cost him 15 yards in the first down. So he wanted to respond from those couple plays, and he obviously did and had a huge fourth quarter for this team.
Yeah, just a really good defensive game, I thought, for the Bears overall. I mean, you're talking about a quarterback who knows how to pick apart defenses, and yes, he's without his top 2 receiving weapons in Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, but that's still. He's one of those guys where it really doesn't matter who's out there. And you and I were kind of looking at each other that first quarter, especially that first drive, because we both picked the Bears to win in this game. And the way that the Rams came out and Stafford was moving the ball and there wasn't really a whole lot of pressure to start that game. I think you and I were both a little bit nervous there, thinking that maybe this is going to be a tougher task than we anticipated.
Yeah. And listen, like I know that the Bears, obviously did a good job of limiting them to field goals and that kind of stuff. But Matthew Stafford still threw for 224 yards.
Yeah.
And he did make it look pretty easy with guys that I don't think many people knew, obviously, right? Like he was just finding guys up the middle. He was obviously that goes a lot to Sean McVay's, offensive game plan and play calling and that sort of stuff. He's able to get guys open. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think the Bears obviously did a great job limiting the field goals, but Matthew Stafford did have himself a game considering what he had.
Yeah, the fact that the Bears played so well in the red zone was probably the difference in this game, because you're right. Like, they were able to move the ball. It's just the Bears stood tall in the red zone and kept them out of the end zone, except for that one time. And that was huge. You do wonder how much that Rams team misses a guy like Cooper Kupp in those situations, a guy who is sort of on the same wavelength as Stafford and knows where to be in those situations down in the red zone. Rick in the comments wanted to give a shout out to Shane Waldron. And yeah, like, I'm throwing out way too many winners for this game, but hey, they won. So whatever. Shane Waldron deserves some credit. I think the thing that stood out to me was when they had those situations where they, when they went no huddle and they had the Rams in a personnel grouping that wasn't favorable for the Rams. They went no huddle and pushed the tempo a little bit. And that was something that we hadn't really seen them do in those first 3 games. Like, when you have a team with, whether it's an extra linebacker out there instead of a defensive back, or whether there's a pass rusher who's off the field, and you want to take advantage of that, good offenses do that. And we didn't see the Bears do that, or at least they didn't do that very successfully the first couple of games. And I think that was a really big reason why they were able to score those back-to-back touchdown drives in the second half. They saw something they liked to their advantage, and they went after it. And I think that's part of what those conversations were focused on this week with Waldron and the offensive guys. I know Caleb said it after the game, when he wanted to, when they find a rhythm, stay in it. When they're doing something right, pick up the tempo. And don't go to the huddle and don't change the personnel groupings. Just stick with it and find a little bit of a rhythm. And I think that's something that Caleb really liked about this win over the Rams.
Yeah, and I think obviously Shane gets a lot of credit for that. I think it was, I think the first quarter, second quarter, where DeAndre Swift, you could tell, was going to be a focus of this game, and you and I are like, he's doing this again. Like, why is he forcing this? Like, I think he used Roschon Johnson. Obviously, Roschon Johnson had 7 carries and picked up 26 yards. But I think that commitment to get DeAndre Swift and to know what he can do kind of showed you, like, why they're so committed to him. It was just, making sure that you're playing to your players, and that's holding guys accountable. So, I think Shane Waldron deserves a lot of credit. There's still some things to fix. Obviously, there's still
for
things
sure
to work on. This isn't I'm not calling this a Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan offense, or I don't think this is a top tier offense at the moment, but it's progress to see the things that we kind of saw on Sunday. And now it's obviously just them trying to build upon that and do better against the Panthers next week.
In the NFL, you have to take advantage of the opportunities. And that's why that Colts loss felt so painful. It felt like a setback, because that game was right there for the taking. And they easily could have won that game. And you can't, if you're going to be a good team in this league, you can't miss out on opportunities like that. You have to beat the bad teams. And not that either one of these teams is necessarily a bad team, but the Rams defense is a bad defense. Like, statistically right now, I know 4 games is a small sample size, but they're not a good defense, and you've got to win a game like that. And so the Bears are 2-2. They've got an opportunity here. They've got the Panthers. They got a Jaguars team that is in shambles and hasn't won a game yet. There's going to be some opportunities here to pick up some wins before you get into those tough division games. Okay, I know we're talking a Bears win. I know we don't want to talk losers, but I'll you know what? I'm going to do what the Bears did this week. I'm going to look myself in the mirror, and I'm going to say my most valuable Bear pick is absolutely a loser from Friday. That was I took Rome Odunze, and he's about the only guy who didn't do anything. Michael, what happened?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, that's kind of why I was kind of tempting to go away from him. I feel like he was going to be focused on more because of what he was able to do against the Colts. And listen, I think this kind of does a combo, a combo negative. But for how good Caleb was, there are a few throws that he missed, right? Like, obviously, there are a couple moments. One was to Rome where at the end of the second half, he had an opportunity to hit him. He just overhit him or overthrew him in the corner of the end zone. And then he missed DJ a couple plays later. I know DJ came after the game and said that was on him. There was just miscommunication. He, kind of did what he wasn't supposed to do. But it's tough because there are some plays where you kind of saw Rome getting held. There was some overthrows. So it's hard to say exactly. It's not like Rome, had a terrible game by any means or anything like that. But Yeah, he wasn't too involved in the offense, and that was a little surprising.
Yeah, that was a little surprising. I know it's tough when you got, obviously Keenan Allen was back. He also had a pretty quiet day, but
yeah,
you got Keenan, you got DJ. I will agree. You mentioned it earlier, that touchdown pass to DJ. That was an impressive throw from Caleb. That was an impressive play both ways. The throw, the catch, the pocket was collapsing. If you go back and watch that play, I mean,
right.
Caleb didn't have much room on either side of him, but he was able to stand in there, stand in the pocket. It's funny, like anybody, I was thinking about this yesterday. Like, I haven't heard from any of those folks out there who during draft season were saying that Caleb can't play from the pocket. It seems like that's all he's done, like that's his game.
Yeah.
And so, clearly those people weren't actually watching the college tape. Okay, another loser. Who you got, Michael?
I'm going with, I don't know where to go with this one. I don't know whether it's the offensive line. I don't know whether it's coaching.
Mm-hmm.
But the pre-snap penalties are still bad. Like, there's still false starts, illegal formations. They're drive killers, and you saw that a lot in the first half. You saw that a little bit in the second half as well. But this team needs to get on the same point. And it was funny. There was a moment yesterday, and I don't remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember specifically when it was, but it was like a moment in the game where like things were working well for the Bears, and then I had like the feeling, wouldn't it be funny if they had like a false start penalty, and then boom, right away you had like the Bears have like a false start penalty, and I just turned to you, I'm like, it's like this feels too scripted. Like, it just feels like they're doing specifically like what we all expect them to do, and it's not working well. And so yeah, and Tevin Jenkins obviously leaves the game. That's obviously a tough pill to swallow.
That's a blow. Yeah.
A loser as well. Just obviously Nate Davis came in there, and then Pryor got moved over to the left side, but. There's some undisciplined play throughout the team. We talked about Brisker's late hit. You can't have that late hit. He's clearly in the white. If he's close to the white, you just got to let him go and let him go to the sideline. But yeah, I don't know how you fix it, and I feel like that's one of the things they'll probably have a conversation on this week, maybe with their leadership council, just being like holding each other accountable and just figuring things out. But the pre-snap penalties, Cole Kmet had some too.
Mm-hmm.
Those need to stop, because those are just killing drives and putting the Bears in tough positions to overcome.
I'd have to look it up, but it feels like Cole Kmet's been penalized a lot early on this season.
It feels like that, yeah.
I don't know the numbers on that, but yeah, I mean, 10 penalties yesterday for 84 yards. You had a penalty on the opening kickoff, which was a touchback.
Right,
it's like,
yeah.
That is inexcusable. That should not happen ever. And, you had Darnell Wright getting called for the illegal formation. It's like, this is week 4. That should be something that's cleaned up. And I do kind of chalk some of that up to, like you mentioned, Tevin Jenkins got hurt. You're using a lineup that you're not used to. You already were flip-flopping guys at right guard the first couple of weeks. And so, yeah, there's been a lot of moving parts on that offensive line. I think if they it would really help them to have some consistency there, to have the same 5 playing for a couple of games in a row. But this is the NFL, and guys get hurt, and we don't know if that's ever going to happen. Mike in the comments says, how is Jenkins? We're going to hopefully find out a little bit more today. Michael's going to be writing from Hallis, and we'll see what Matt Eberflus says. It's possible we don't get a real clear answer. If he's going on IR, we would probably learn that today. If he's not going on IR, we'll probably have to wait till Wednesday till we see the practice report to really see what the deal is. But yeah, that was a rib injury. So obviously that's concerning. It's hard to play any position if you got some cracked ribs or something. I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but it sounds like maybe that's what's going on there.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. I know, Caleb talked about after the game how, tough of a moment that was, but he also did say that he liked the group coming together. And obviously, they were able to get those 2 second half drives to move the ball down the field pretty well. But yeah, that's a tough injury. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, I think the Bears will finally get reinforcements back with a couple of linemen back this week, and then maybe another one back next week. Obviously, we don't know Bates's and Borum's status yet, obviously, but it'll be interesting to see what they do and how they kind of regroup, because I guess you can survive these type of mistakes. Obviously, they didn't against the Colts, so maybe you can survive these types of mistakes against the Texans. But listen, like when you're getting into division play, you can't have those types of mistakes on offense. You can't have those types of mistakes on defense or special teams as well. So they got to clean that up. They got to figure things out, and that obviously just it's up to the players to not make those mistakes, but it's also up to the coaches to make sure that they're not letting them make those types of mistakes.
I see some comments here in the chat too, Rick and Robert talking about if some of those pre-snap penalties are on Caleb, and yeah, you're dealing with a rookie quarterback. Is that a cadence issue? That is a fair question, especially like the one that was on. I think it was on Cole where he was in motion, and then he motioned over to the left side and seemed like he was ready to go, and they didn't snap the ball, and Cole sort of jerked a little bit as if he was about to start running. And you wonder if that's, is that on the quarterback? Is that on the center? Where exactly is the issue on that one? I think it's totally fair to wonder if some of that stuff is on Caleb, because this is all new. This is still only his fourth game in the NFL. And everything from the way they're getting the play call in the helmet and all that stuff is all new for a rookie quarterback. I think that's totally fair to wonder. While we're talking about the O-line too, I'll throw out another loser. I thought Braxton Jones had a tough time against Jared Verse, the edge rusher for the Rams. There were several plays, especially in that middle part of the game. It might have been the third quarter where Verse was just going after him again and again. And it wasn't like he was trying to go around him. He was trying to go right through him. And he had Braxton Jones on his heels. That bull rush has been an issue for Jones throughout his career. And I think that other teams are going to see that on tape and say, we just got to go right at this guy and we can get him backpedaling. And there were a couple times it didn't always lead to sacks, but it definitely affected Caleb in the pocket.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting because, entering the season, we had questions about this offensive line. And I think you're getting a stronger answer with Braxton Jones, where I feel like at the first it was like, oh, like he was I think 5th round pick and you were able to get a starting left tackle out of it. I think he's starting to show some vulnerabilities. I think you're starting to see, he can do fairly well at times, but sometimes he's just creating opportunities. And some of those could have been sacks. There have been a couple of times, in that drive where, he was just getting bull rushed and Caleb was able to just scramble away. He threw one away. And I think I can't remember specifically whether it was this one, the one where he dumped off to DeAndre Swift, but he kept getting pressured, and some of those could have been sacks with other quarterbacks. Luckily, Caleb was able to sneak away and get out of it. But I think you're starting to get a clear answer, and you're not going to make a conclusion on a guy through 4 games. But
no,
I think you're starting to see what some of the things might be. I know I'm not going to start looking into the off season, but there are some things that you're going to start looking into during the off season, whether that's the draft, whether that's free agency. And I feel like some of those spots will probably be on the offensive line.
Well, I agree kind of with what you're saying, though. I mean, I do like Braxton. I think he is a very serviceable player at that left tackle spot. But if you want to take this team from good to great, you got to upgrade some of those spots where you're just good. And that might be one of them. I mean, I don't know. It's far too early to say. Obviously, they're going to let Braxton play out the season. Look, Jared Verse is the 19th overall pick for a reason.
Right.
He's a really, really heck of a good pass rusher. And, you can actually, if you're a Bears fan, like you're lucky that it wasn't a Texans situation where they got guys on both sides, because you can sort of paper, if one guy is doing really well, you could throw an extra tight end out there. And they did do some of that. You can find ways to give Braxton some help in that situation, but it's tough when you got 2. And we saw that. We all lived that 2 weeks ago against the Houston Texans. Michael, you got one more loser before we move on?
I'm going to go with Khalil Herbert. I don't know what he needs to do. I don't know if the staff just doesn't like him. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe it's a, I hate to assume, maybe it's a him thing. I don't know. Maybe they're not seeing what they want to see from him, but it seems like he's just in the doghouse with the staff right now. He's not getting any looks. He got no carries against the Rams. He got limited opportunities, and he was called a goal line, running back, but then you didn't put him in the goal line situation, yesterday, right? So And I think it's tough because like Khalil Herbert has shown us over the few years that he can be a dynamic running back. He can, get you a couple tough yards. He can get you 10 or 15 yards. Like behind a good offensive line, he can do fairly well, right? So I don't know what the issue is. I don't know whether it's the blocking. I don't know um, what the what the problem is, but he's getting no looks at all. I see Rick also commenting. I would lump him in as well. Tyler Scott, I don't know what he needs to do to get on the field. He's not getting any opportunities. You knew Keenan Allen was coming back, so he wasn't going to get too many looks if he didn't get looks when Keenan Allen was not playing. But yeah, I mean those two guys. I think Khalil Herbert's a little bit more daunting considering what we expected him to do at the beginning of the season and how much Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron played up Khalil Herbert. So I just feel like maybe it's his own doing, maybe it's his not own doing, but I think Khalil Herbert's a loser. He's just not getting any opportunities right now, and he's not getting any chances to show off what he can do.
Yeah, not a single snap on offense yesterday. And you're right. Like this was a player who was the clear number 2 option during training camp. I mean, he was, and look, I know Roshan was hurt for a little bit of that, but even when Roshan was healthy, Herbert was running with the 2s, Roshan was running with the 3s. And obviously that has not been the case right now, through the first 4 games of the season. He's not getting any looks on offense.
No.
Yeah, the whole goal line comment is weird. If you call him your goal line back and then don't use him on the goal line, like,
right.
Okay, what was that all about? I don't know. I don't know what to make of any of that. But and Sports Chicago Style is kind of talking about it in the chat, and some of the other folks in there. Like, yeah, maybe at this point they're just trying to keep him healthy for the trade deadline. I don't know. It's weird. I feel like I don't know. I feel like I said that on a show in like May or something, or June, when we were talking, and maybe I shouldn't have put that out in the universe because it seems to be manifesting itself as we speak. I mean, yeah, this is a running back who's in the last year of his rookie deal. If they don't like him, they should just move on from him. And guys are going to get hurt. Running backs are going to get hurt. There's always going to be teams that need a running back. That's one of those spots where you can cycle through a bunch of guys. So we haven't seen. It hasn't been too bad early on across the league as far as running backs getting hurt here early on. But eventually there's going to be some team who's down to their 3rd or 4th running back. And maybe the Bears are looking to get something for him. I do think you could get maybe a 6th or a 7th round pick for him if there's a team that really needs a running back. But yeah, I don't know what, I mean, clearly they're not playing him. So I don't know what else. I don't know why else he would be here if you're not trying to maybe move him for a pick or something.
But if you're trying to trade him, aren't you trying to show that he can be a player, right? Like, I don't think a team can be like, well, we did well a year ago, we did well 2 years ago, whatever. But like, I think a lot of teams might be hesitant and be like, well, I haven't seen him. Why aren't you using him at all? Like, why, like other than special teams, like why isn't he getting the ball? Like if you don't want him, why would I want him, right? So it's interesting. Maybe it is just to keep him healthy. This is all speculation, right? Like we don't know if they're actually trying to trade him, but it's just so weird that they're not using him and not, he's a talented player. He's a good running back in this league. He has shown that in this, through his first few years. So it's interesting. I don't know what the plan is. Like, are you keeping him in case DeAndre Swift or Roshan Johnson gets injured? It's just weird for him to not get a single snap and get an opportunity. And, maybe Shane Waldron feels like the mojo that they got going and they're like, let's just keep it going. DeAndre Swift is doing well when Roshan Johnson comes in. He's picking up solid yards. It's really interesting, and maybe we'll get an answer this week just to, when you're talking to Shane Waldron, one of the coaches, just to see, what's going on here. What does this guy need to do in order to get on the field?
And look, yeah, Roshan played well last week, and he earned those touches.
Sure, yeah,
absolutely. I'm not saying that Roshan didn't earn the touches.
Yeah.
Like he absolutely did, and he should still keep seeing the ball. He's really efficient, but who else was the most efficient running back 2 years ago in the entire league was Khalil Herbert. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm fine with giving Roshan the ball. I'm not saying don't do that. And maybe I don't necessarily think that it's an issue if you are trying to trade him because, any GM who has a decent rapport with Ryan Poles would call him up and say, what's the deal? And if Poles just says, look, we hired a new OC and the new OC doesn't like him, like, that's exactly what happened to Darrell Taylor in Seattle.
Yeah.
They got a new coaching staff. didn't quite fit what they were trying to do, so they moved on. And I think that happens a lot across the league. And I don't think that not playing him is going to hinder your ability to trade him. All right, that's our winners and losers. Michael, is there anything else from this game that we didn't touch on, or guys in the comments, if you want to drop any other thoughts, comments, questions, hit us up. We got a little bit more time. Rick asks if we're going to London. I am going to London. I will be there. If anybody else is going to be around, let us know in the comments. Robert, I know you're over on the other side of the pond. Robert, who is, I'm always amazed that he's checking in with us live on YouTube. What time is it? I guess it's late afternoon over there right now. I guess this is not a weird time, but Robert says too expensive for me, sadly. That's too bad. But yeah, I'll be over there. I'm excited to go see what the deal is over in London and see what type of crowd we're going to get for this NFL game. This is fun stuff. CJ wants to know, is the run D concerning? 93 yards for Kyren Williams yesterday. What do you think, Michael? I'm not overly concerned about it.
I'm not. I think that's just what the NFL is today, right? Like you're going to give up yardage. I think, it's really interesting because, we talked about what Matthew Stafford was able to do against his Bears defense, what they're able to kind of move the ball. Listen, you held the team to 18 points. That's good, right? Like I think most teams are scoring or probably around like 24, 28, like something like that. So if you're able to keep a team under 20 points, I think that's good. And I think that's the biggest thing you take from this game, where you got a couple takeaways, you got a forced fumble, you got an interception, you got obviously you limited them to a bunch of field goals instead of like a touchdown. So it's one of those things where it's like I try not to repeat it in my 3 and outs, but like it literally is bend don't break, right? Like you can let them get yardage, you can let them pick things up, but when it really matters, this defense has made stops and really, either turn the ball over or, limited them to only a field goal or created, tough situations. So I wouldn't be too concerned about it. If someone was putting up 200 yards, yeah, I'd probably be concerned about that. But, the rush defense is what the rush defense is. I think they're going to give up their yardage. Sometimes they're going to give up a first down here or there. I think you just got to take that with what you got and then more consistently look at them and what they're able to do in the red zone with their defense or, in the 30-yard line as opposed to maybe giving up 10 yards here or there to start a drive.
Yeah, you look at some of the numbers. I mean, right now they're 17th out of 32 teams in rushing yards per game, 19th in rushing yards per attempt, kind of average. You look at some of the, maybe a little bit deeper at some of the underlying metrics, EPA per rush. They are like in the bottom. They're 21st right now. So yeah, not great, not terrible. Look, they've faced Joe Mixon and Jonathan Taylor and Kyren Williams is one of the best running backs in the league last year and is off to another really good start. I'm not super worried about it. I think it's going to look a lot better next week against the Carolina Panthers, and you're going to kind of not be so worried. It is worth noting that Andrew Billings has been sort of dealing with a knee injury. I know he played in that game. He's healthy. He's out there, so there's no excuses for that. But that matters. I mean, he's your big space eater, and if he's not, even if he's only playing at 80-85%, that's obviously you want everybody at 100%. That's going to affect what you're trying to do there. But again, I'm not super worried about that. Mike Johnson says, I was disappointed. They burned a timeout with 1:13 left in the game before the last punt. Why not take the delay and save the timeout just in case? That's fair. I did wonder if they were going to take a delay a game in that situation as it was playing out in front of us. Yeah, I mean that's totally fair. Like you want to keep your timeouts for your offense. If the Rams did, there's another world in which Tory Taylor, maybe his punt goes into the end zone and it's a touchback and the Rams drive down the field and then you're trailing a point and you need to go score a field goal. And so you do wonder sometimes about Matt Eberflus and the timeouts. I don't think that was super egregious, but it is one worth wondering if that's exactly the way they wanted to play it. I think they trusted their defense in that situation to go and make a stop. And I get that.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. I think that Eberflus has all the confidence in the world with this defense, and this defense has its own confidence. They talked about getting out there. I think Jalen Johnson was asked, how confident were you in getting that stop at the end of the game? And he said extremely. And Montez Sweat said that they were focused on getting a takeaway, not getting a stop. This defense is very confident, and they should be very confident. So maybe that goes into it, maybe you're like, all right, we'll just put the defense out there. They'll get us a win, and we'll just kneel this one out. So, yeah, I think it's worth looking at, but it's not going to keep me up as a Bears fan. I think there are other, coaching things, whether it's, the undisciplined play, the penalties, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about that than I am about that decision to go with that timeout.
All right. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you, everyone who joined us live this morning. Chatting Bears Rams. As always, do us a favor, hit the thumbs up on YouTube. That is a great way to support the show. If you're listening on Apple, if you're listening on Spotify, leave us a review. Another great way to support the show. And be sure to head to shawlocal.com to read all of our coverage. We got a bunch of stories up there from yesterday, really diving deep into what was happening yesterday in the game and what some of the players had to say afterwards. Head to shawlocal.com, read all our stuff. Please consider subscribing. That is the best way to support our work. He's Michael Dwojak. You can find him on Twitter at mdwojak94. I'm Sean Hammond. You can find me at Sean_Hammond. Keep an eye on our Twitter pages. If you want to join us live on YouTube, we will let you know ahead of time when we're going live every Monday and Friday during the season. This has been the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. Thanks for joining us and have a great week, everybody.